What could traders accomplish if they knew the magic of even numbers? The ancient Pythagoreans were attached to the idea that everything is generated by numbers. Numbers control the whole universe. And they called the even numbers female numbers, and they called the odd numbers male numbers. And what's really interesting is if you look in the markets, the alternation principle seems to be very lively. What happened last year tends to be the opposite of what happens next year. What happens last month tends to be the opposite of what happens this month. So there turns out to be like a 2-unit cycle. If you look at the 2-day cycle, there's actually a 2-day cycle. Here you can see the red graph is the present 10-minute chart going back about a week. And underneath it, the blue line is 2 days before that. And notice how it's been repeating what happened 2 days ago for the last week. So, and then the 2-month cycle. Just looking back at what happened 2 months ago, the same storyline. We have the red graph represents the real-time market, and the blue line underneath it represents what happened 2 months ago, overlaid on the present. And notice how many pivots going back over a year, the market has been basically going up and going down and going up and going down. Not exactly, but fairly closely the same as what happened 2 months ago. Also, look at the 2-year cycle, where, 1 year would be kind of opposite. Like last year, we had a high in January and a low in June. This year, we had a low in January and a high in June. And if it continues, last year we had a low in October, we should have a high in October. That type of behavior is opposite. Now, if you look at 2 years ago, which we see in this chart, and you overlay the data from 2 years ago on the present data, what you see is the market is seemingly repeating quite nicely what has been happening for over a year and a half, 2 years now. That's 2-year cycle. Well, what about a 10-year interval? So one 10-year interval times 2 is 20 years. And take a look at this is the overlay of 20 years ago on top of the most recent monthly data on the Dow Jones. And notice the high and low points, many high and many low points along the way were repeating what happened 20 years earlier. So this concept of numbers like 2 and 4 and 8 are extremely meaningful in the cycle work that we do. And it's just a tiny little fact that you should become aware of that is one of many, many magic tricks that the market has a tendency to play repeatedly.